our fellow organizers. And right off the bat, I want to say a few thanks because this conference would not operate without Maria Lucia Casa and Anna Milena Vivas, who have really done an enormous amount of work to make this conference what it is, to make it run on time. And if last year's example is worth anything, I'm expecting this year to be even more fantastic. And so thanks to our organizers for their immense effort. I just also want to indicate a thanks to our supporters and sponsors. This year, we decided we wanted to work more closely with the various firms and outfits and institutions that make Washington truly one of the world's greatest centers for international arbitration, not just international investment arbitration, but commercial arbitration. We have great people, great resources. Washington is fantastic all year round, but if you have a chance to be here in late March, early April, our cherry blossoms are amazing. But if you really need somewhere to hold your arbitration, this is the place to do it. And we're going to have a session on that, I think today. And we're also this year, we decided to put a few more sessions on kind of the practical elements of international arbitration. And we hope that you'll enjoy that. But of course, what Washington is known for and what we're incredibly proud of is our international investment arbitration practice. And having ICSID located here is of course a real privilege and something that we feel is an incredible advantage for all types of arbitration. Not just to have ICSID arbitrations, but ICSID is a great resource for holding arbitrations. And a little shout out there. They've got a fantastic facility. You'll probably hear more about that shortly, but really, it's a privilege to be part of the arbitration community here in DC, and really this gets to the nub of why Jose Antonio and I felt that it was important to bring folks together for a Washington Arbitration Week conference and try to do this annually because of so much that Washington has to offer. And really, this is an exhibition. It's an ability to show our stuff, and so welcome to everyone. And as we move towards our speaker, and I won't steal his thunder, I want to introduce my co-founder of Washington Arbitration Week, Dr. Jose Antonio Rivas. I think most of you know Jose Antonio by now from our endless reminder emails and advertisements, but Jose Antonio has become a stalwart of Washington arbitration. He started here doing his LL.M and SJD at Georgetown. He worked at ICSID for many years as a counsel there. He has advised governments, working for the Colombian government as their investment law, trade law advisor, negotiating many of the treaties that we operate under. Jose Antonio is an adjunct professor teaching a fantastic course on international investment arbitration together with me, I must say. So, for all of our students out there who are still looking for courses, you can't go wrong with Laird and Rivas. So little advertisement there too. But Jose Antonio has really been the engine behind WAW, WAW, Washington Arbitration Week. And it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Jose Antonio and ask him to carry the baton to our fantastic speaker this morning. Jose Antonio.
Thank you, Ian. I truly didn't expect to be introduced in such a generous fashion. Thank you very much. More than about me, this is about Washington Arbitration Week. This is about our stellar um, invitee, Meg Kinnear, um, because she has also been a force behind the Washington Arbitration Week, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Meg. Before doing so, I would like to echo the thanks to our sponsors, to our marvelous advisory committee in which Meg is sitting, but also Borzu Sabahi, Chip Rosenberg, Gaila Gehring Flores, Lee Kaplan, Marion Carlson, Kelby Balena, and Lucinda Lowe. I think that this wouldn't be possible if we didn't have such a marvelous advisory committee. And the last thing that I'll do before introducing Meg is to talk a little bit about the ethos that drives Washington Arbitration Week. The ethos that drives us is to provide a forum to the DC practitioners, students, arbitrators, but also those that are closely related to Washington, DC. And that means that we do not only we're not only providing a forum for those of us who live in DC, but for those of us who are related to DC, who go through DC, who are practicing and coming to hearings in DC, who are always open to come to a conference in DC. And for a long time, DC surprisingly did not have a forum such as Washington Arbitration Week where we would all come together. The pandemic has created that opportunity in the sense that we're all connected via video, and the numbers have been very positive. So with that, I'll pass on to say that we're also based on diversity. If you see the members of the advisory committee, we have partners, we have paralegals, we have all sorts of practitioners. And by practitioners, I do not only mean counsel. I mean those folks that are related to the services of international arbitration, because international arbitration is broader than simply the first chair or the second chair. It involves a whole load of individuals that make things happen. And that's what we want to bring to the table in a diverse manner. So with that, I'll introduce Meg. Meg needs no introduction, but I always find that a little bit annoying when somebody says that somebody doesn't need any introduction and they don't introduce them. So I have the pleasure to say who Meg is. She's the Secretary General of the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. Meg joined ICSID in June 2009. She worked as a senior general counsel between 2006 and 2009 and Director General of the Trade Law Bureau of Canada. Prior to this, Meg also worked as the executive assistant to the Deputy Minister of Justice of Canada and counsel at the Civil Litigation section of the Canadian Department of Justice. She has published widely with respect to international investment law and procedure, including as co-author of Investment Disputes under NAFTA, updated editions in 2008 and 2009. And she holds degrees from the University of Virginia, LL.M, and the University of McGill, LL.B, and she's admitted to the bar of the Law Society of Upper Canada, Ontario, and the District of Columbia. And of course, she speaks English and French as Canadians do, right? But beyond that, it's incredible with the amount of work that Meg has, how supportive she has been. Of all of our supporters, I would say she really earns the star for being efficient in saying yes or asking questions, in providing feedback to all the panels. When I say that she's part of the advisory committee, I mean that she really gets into the details of what the program is, and that is what we want from all of our advisory committee members. and she does a stellar job. So with you here, Kinnear.
Well, thank you very, very much. I am really pleased to join you this morning to help launch this second Washington Arbitration Week. And I'd like to start by congratulating Jose Antonio, Ian, and the entire team who have been determined to maintain this new tradition, and they have put together another tremendous program. This obviously is especially notable given the continuing pandemic and the constraints that has imposed. I think the last 21 months have been very challenging. And in many ways, I feel like we've all simply been holding our breath, just waiting until this thing is over. But in fact, we've been doing more than just holding our breath. At ICSID, we have been busier than ever. And I thought it would be a bit interesting to do a little bit of a retrospective on what's been happening at the center while we were all home waiting for this to be done. So I am going to share a slide with you. And if I can, as you may recall, we opened our, to set the stage, we opened our beautiful, let me just see if I can get, there we go. We opened our beautiful, incredible Washington Hearing Center in January of 2019. And those who held hearings there can confirm that the new center is 100% state of the art. It's very modern. It has updated technology, translation booths in each hearing room. There are 3 hearing rooms, individual deliberation rooms for arbitrators, individual deliberation rooms for the counsel, a coffee bar, catering, and a cafeteria. It has everything you could possibly imagine, and everyone who held hearings there was hugely impressed. So in a bit of a demonstration of timing is all, ironically, having just opened our beautiful new center, the world began adapting to COVID-19, and of course, so did we. So on March 13th, 2020, the World Bank suspended all mission travel, closed all buildings, and sent all staff home. And of course, we, like everybody, had no idea how long this would last or what impact it might have on us all. So the mantra at ICSID immediately became business as usual, even though, as you can see, it was nothing like usual. Our first steps were to send a note to all participants advising that filings from thence on should be done electronically. And we were very lucky because we were going in that direction anyhow with our technology. So we were able literally to shift overnight to all filings being done electronically. And that has been seamless in the past 21 months. So as far as we're concerned, electronic filing at ICSID is the new norm. We also then decided that we were going to make sure that the hearing schedule was not disrupted. And as in any normal week at ICSID, there were a number of hearings ongoing. A lot of parties and a lot of arbitrators were concerned about doing remote hearings and what the implications might be for fairness of the system and efficiency of the process. And certainly in the first couple of weeks, parties began to postpone. But as time went along, I think everyone realized this was not going to end quickly, and the only way to move forward was to do remote hearings. So we took on remote hearings in a big way. And I know today when we talk about remote hearings, it's kind of commonplace, but at the time we were all treading on very new ground and having to do full merits hearings with translation, with real-time court reporting, and with participants literally coming from all across the globe was especially intensive at the start, when we did a huge amount of testing and made sure we had backup systems for the backup systems. We actually did our first remote hearing less than 10 days after we were sent home, and we actually followed that up with a video presentation with all participants who all gave their impression of how they manage the remote presentation and their tips for how you can effectively do a remote presentation. We did a second video in 2019 of arbitrators saying how they found remote presentations were useful and how counsel could be most effective using the technology. We experimented with various platforms, WebEx, Zoom, BlueJeans, and I think at this point, Zoom has probably emerged as the most frequently used platform and has a large share of the market today. but others are still trying to catch up, and we're able to offer any platform that the parties feel most comfortable with. We also developed a number of remote hearing protocols based on our continuing experience, and we addressed various concerns that were brought up with technology. For example, in the beginning, a number of counsel brought up the concern that it would be easier to tamper with a witness who was testifying from their home. So the technological solution was the 360-degree camera. So we've always found a way to use the technology, and at this point, we have done more than 380 remote sessions since March of 2020. So we are getting pretty good at those. I'd like to give huge kudos to my staff for making this happen. It was nothing short of heroic in the early days when they were getting up at 4 a.m. to help arbitrators turn on the computer and get the whole program going. I have no doubt that we're going to continue offering remote hearings. And we've found, of course, that they save time, cost, wear and tear, and carbon footprint. So the real question for us as a profession is the extent to which we will decide to maintain the benefits of remote hearings and continue to use them wherever possible. We're already hearing from counsel and arbitrators, some who are convinced and are real proponents of this technique, and others who would like to return to our prior practice of doing sessions in person. I hope personally that we don't simply snap back to all in-person sessions and lose the benefit of all of the learning we've done and all of the practice we've obtained. I think we are getting very good, and while there will always be some cases where an in-person session makes more sense, for example, where there are large time differences, we have a tool here that can offer time savings, money savings, and be very efficient. And certainly on behalf of ICSID, we're going to continue offering these sessions and give parties their choice of media wherever they're comfortable with using this kind of new media. So it's something to keep in mind. At the same time, obviously, we hope that we are on the way back. And certainly I thought that was very clear until yesterday when we all heard about this new Omicron flu, but optimistically, we are on the way back. And so we are now thinking about what are known as hybrid hearings. And essentially, this is nothing more than a few participants together in one location with others participating remotely. So we've done several of these over the summer, usually in the scenario where the 3 tribunal members sit together in person and the parties are remote. But any kind of combination is possible for a hybrid hearing. I want to assure you that we are and will continue taking immense health precautions with any in-person component of our hearings. We have few people in person, so everyone can be the 6 feet apart. Masks if a person is not speaking, proof of vaccination, we have COVID testing, and extra sanitation in all of the rooms and all of the elevators. So with the World Bank, we have made this as safe as possible, given what we know about this virus. And when we have hybrid hearings, you can be confident that we will be taking all of those safety precautions. One of the most notable features of the last year, and I have to say, it's certainly maybe not what I would have expected or predicted in May or March of 2020, but that is the huge increase in the number of cases. And to me, that is truly a vote of confidence in the arbitration system and something quite wonderful. In the case of ICSID, for example, we set a new record for cases with 70 new cases registered in 2020. And so far in 2021, we have 71 cases registered. So we will set yet another new record. We also administered 20 unset trial cases and ad hoc cases over the same time. And so we have been able to maintain and grow the number of cases that we are able to service. What's interesting, I think, about these cases is that they are strikingly similar in terms of profile to what we have had in past year. And when I say that, I mean similar economic sectors, similar respondents, types of measures, etc. And that is contrary to, I think, what a lot of people were predicting, which was almost a tsunami of COVID cases. We have not by any means seen a tsunami of COVID cases. And in fact, I think there's only one case at the center that I could say is at all related to COVID, in that it relates to business losses that came out of measures taken to address COVID. So while there's been a lot of talk about an onslaught of COVID cases, that certainly has not materialized to date. And one might think that we were more likely to see more contract breach or force majeure type of cases coming out of COVID measures. So this obviously remains open, but we will see what happens in the next year or two and whether further cases mature coming out of the measures we've seen most recently. We were also extremely busy on the membership front, and especially pleased in June of 2021 to welcome Ecuador as a full member of ICSID. And you can see here the signing ceremony, replete with masks and 6-foot distances due to COVID precautions. And again, that is a first, but again, the signing ceremony was business as usual despite the pandemic. As you all probably know, Ecuador was one of the 3 states that had left ICSID, and some commentators had pointed to this as a precursor of mass abandonment of the investor state system at the time. And that, of course, has not proved accurate. In fact, ICSID now has 156 member states, more than ever before, and has been growing steadily in the past years, and I expect this trend to continue. I also would like to note that despite the pandemic, members were very active in ICSID members, including the appointment of 84 new people to the panels. And we at the center were also very active and signed new cooperation agreements with the Energy Charter Treaty Secretariat, the Santiago Arbitration Center, as well as our first cooperation agreements with mediation centers, the Singapore Center and Center in October of 2021. And next week, we will be signing a facilities cooperation agreement in Japan with the Japanese Dispute Resolution Center that was newly opened. So once again, this means we can provide services virtually anywhere in the world. And what's also perhaps unknown is that we can also provide services in cases under rules where we have a cooperation agreement. So for example, we've provided services to ICC cases, PCA cases, SEAC or Hong Kong Center cases. So it makes the center incredibly versatile and able to service a huge range of arbitration. As we were all holding our breath, or at least I was, a lot of things were happening on the global treaty making front. And I have to say, when I reviewed this, I was actually almost a bit surprised because I hadn't put them all together on a single page. But in the past year, there have been a number of treaties, and the trend towards regional and multi-state treaties has continued during the pandemic. So you saw, for example, the USMCA coming into force in July of 2020, signing of the RCEP in November of 2020, and interestingly, applications in 2021 by the UK, China, and Taiwan to join the CPTPP, and those, of course, are still pending. As well, there was an agreement signed between the EU and China, a comprehensive investment agreement, and that appears to be currently on hold, but there was a lot of regional treaty making going on. At the same time, something that might have been counterintuitive for those who follow this, there was also a lot of bilateral investment treaty making in 2020 and 2021. So to give you an idea of the span of the people signing these agreements, Hong Kong, Mexico, Colombia, Spain, Israel, Korea, and Georgia, Japan are just a few examples of new investment agreements. As well, the United Kingdom was signing a number of investment agreements and investment partnerships, making up for the fact that it no longer was a member of the EU equivalent measures. All of these new treaties demonstrate many of the new characteristics of investment agreements, things like increased transparency, tools for states to participate in interpretation of the treaty, more specific description of the substantive obligations, usually a right to regulate, and sustainable development clauses. They also frequently have greater procedural requirements specified in the treaty. So we are clearly dealing with a new generation of treaty. And the question is, what impact will this have on dispute settlement? And that, of course, is yet to be seen. But certainly as practitioners, we are all going to have to learn how these new treaties operate and be ready to apply them in practice. At the same time, a number of reform initiatives continued apace. In particular, UNCITRAL Working Group 2 and 3 were addressing procedural reform and structural reform. A joint code of conduct was being drafted by ICSID and UNCITRAL together, and it's now in its third iteration and coming along pretty well. There's been the renegotiation of the Energy Charter Treaty, which has gone to its 8th negotiating round. And from my perspective, absolutely the most important of all has been progress on the ICSID rule amendments. We released the final working paper on November 12th of 2021 with a letter to our member states proposing to close consultations and to hold a vote by correspondence early in the new year. If that schedule holds, it means that implementation in practice will likely be in the middle of 2022, so really not far off. I note that these rules, of course, have updated arbitration rules, but also updated conciliation rules and expanded additional facility, new fact-finding, and standalone mediation rules. So I think we are launching onto a new generation of dispute settlement methods from these amendments. And again, as practitioners, we will have to master these tools, but I think they will be very important tools for us and our clients. Not surprisingly, then, the focus of ICSID from this point on is the implementation of our new rules. We are hiring a number of new staff. We are updating our case management systems to have the new timeframes in our new rules. We've given all of our in-house staff mediation training, and we're providing extensive materials on all the various aspects of our amendment. And I think we're going to see really a new generation of dispute settlement that's going to be ready for the new generation challenges that we all have. And I'd like to just finish this looking at the kind of challenges that we all are dealing in the pandemic and hopefully post-pandemic. As many of you probably realize, the good news is that FDI has recovered more than 70% of its pandemic loss, but perhaps not as optimistic. At least 75% of this recovery has been in developing economies, and other economies are still trying to get back to their pre-pandemic level. We know that investment is needed as part of this. And in fact, there is a fair amount of growing investor confidence in things like infrastructure projects, likely because of long-term favorable conditions, because of the stimulus packages that a number of governments are issuing, and overseas investment programs that various governments are sponsoring. But we need to deal still with the pandemic, obviously. We need to deal with underemployment, and in particular, debt burdens in developing states, which make it very hard for them to come back. And there is a very clear role for investment in dealing with all of these. The other point that I think is really vital to make is that the world has an acute need for investment in areas that build resilience, and in particular, renewable energy, access to healthcare, and sustainable food production. You'll recall that many of these new investments are going to benefit from investment protection under treaties and contracts, as they are frequently cross-border initiatives. And again, there is a role for investment and investment dispute resolution. So we are certainly part of the solution, and not, as sometimes we're accused in the media, of being part of the problem. There is a lot that can be offered here, and we are up to that challenge. So a lot has changed, we know, and maybe in transformational ways, and we're all going to be experiencing and learning this in the years to come. But I think it's fair to say that arbitration has come through this well, and it clearly remains one of the tools needed to address growth. And I hope you see that we are more than ready and really very excited to take on this challenge at ICSID. And we look forward to working with you to making our contribution to building back better. So I'd like to thank you for this opportunity and wish you a wonderful conference in the next several days.
Thank you, Meg, and for this wonderful perspective, which I believe had everything that was in our thoughts, and even more, including investment, the status of international investment arbitration, Washington, D.C., and the challenges that come ahead. I would like to thank you again and wish you well for all of our attendees. This is the end of the initial speech, and we will now go into the following session, which is the Washington, D.C. as a place of arbitration. In order to log into that session, we will close this session and we will ask all the participants to log back into that session, and we will be right back with everyone for our next session. So thank you, everyone. And again, this is a wonderful start, and hopefully we will be able to share some materials that Meg has shared with us, and people will be able to see them, because I believe that there's a lot there to unpack. Thank you very much, and we will be right back with you. Bye-bye.